Hi, I'm Tricia McCannon. Thanks for joining us. This is one of a series about my new book that's coming out called The Angelic Origins of the Soul. And the subtitle is Discovering Your Divine Purpose or Your Divine Destiny. This book really grew out of teachings that I've done for many years within the mystery schools. As many of you know, I have a mystery school called the Phoenix Fire Lodge, the Order of the Eagle and the Dove, representing symbols for the Divine Father and Mother, the eagle and the dove, wisdom and love. And in this process of teaching these classes for over 12 years and having students around the world asking for these teachings, I developed a series of 12 online classes. And these are classes you can go to my website at triciamccannonspeaks.com and you can actually see table of contents, and you can order them if you want to, and you can study them at home. So one of these discourses is really about what I have discovered as a researcher, but also as a clairvoyant that's done readings for over 6,000 people around the world. Now, when I started reading for people many years ago, probably over 35 years ago, in the beginning, I was only going back 3, 4, maybe 5,000 years in their soul histories. People would come to me with current problems or current karmic relationships, and they were trying to figure out where the source of the problems were, or where they had known their daughters or their husbands or their wives or their loved ones before, or why they incarnated into such crazy dysfunctional families, and or who their business partner was, and whether they should go forward in their life in a particular direction, and how it was connected to their past. And so I have an ability to look at the past, the present, and the future as a clairvoyant. And I found that many times I could source the root of the problem or the block or the challenge or the karmic situation to past lives. So this is kind of what I focused on the first 3 or 4 years that I did readings. In time, I found myself going further and further back in that person's soul history. And in some cases, I would say at least half the people that I read for, I found that many of these souls had incarnated in even more ancient times, beyond what we think of as Sumeria or Egypt or ancient Greece. In fact, they had been part of a more ancient civilization called Atlantis, and some had actually been part of a Lemurian civilization that existed prior to Atlantis and then at the same time of Atlantis. So this was in another gigantic world age, and of course we know those legends of Atlantis persist, and the flood, the great flood from the Bible, is all over the world. So I found myself in a totally different culture, and this was an amazing aha for me. Sometimes my clients actually came to this planet on spaceships, because Atlantis reached a period of such development that it was really a star capital all over the galaxy. And sometimes totally human-looking beings would come from the Pleiades, for example, or from the Sirius system, or from Andromeda, or from Nibiru, where the Anunnaki gods came from. And I found that everything seemed to vibrate at a little finer rate than where we are now. Almost as if we were in the 3rd and a half dimension. But there were definitely, there were buildings, people got married, there were customs, there were traditions, there was governments, there was spirituality. We used more of our brain and our psychic powers, our spiritual powers for a long period of time. But very similar to today, we wound up actually sliding into more and more use of technology, exploiting the earth, kind of like we're doing today, getting into genetic manipulations, which, when you start getting into GMOs like Monsanto, it's really bad news. I mean, they may make a lot of money, but basically everyone that ingests food that is not aligned with the natural organic world is actually not going to know how to process that, whether it's animals and we eat the animals, or whether it's us directly. So they were making a lot of the same mistakes that we were making. And just like we're doing fracking, which is really horrible because it's poisoning our water table and it's destabilizing the continent, they were doing something very similar. So here we are again as souls making the same mistakes, and hopefully we'll wake up in the middle of this and begin to change it. Well, this is not, of course, the subject of the book that and the Angelic Origins of the Soul, but this is what I discovered. So in time, I began to think, where did those people come from before they came here. Well, I could pull the thread of their soul records and find myself going back to their planets. And of course I was curious, so I started looking around. But in time I began to ask, well, wait a minute, where were they before, let us say, they incarnated in the third dimension, whether it was on Earth or whether it was in another planetary system. And so I found myself actually over a period of over a decade of doing spiritual work, pulling the thread and tracing the soul up into the fourth and the fifth dimension, and eventually I made a leap in my own consciousness where I was able to access even higher states. And what I discovered to my complete and utter amazement is that all of us actually begin in the angelic kingdom. Now, this is not what I have been taught. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in a Judeo-Christian family. I was taught, you know, angels, higher order of being connected to God, humans down here, etc. What I found, though, is that all of us originated in the angelic kingdom. And there are definitely differences in us, in our angelic state, or the angels that we think of now, and who we are as humans today. Angels are more connected and consciously connected to the whole. They are able to hear the music of the spheres. They're able to know where to go, what to do, and how to serve. They don't have the kind of egos that we do. And they certainly don't have the kind of emotional, messy bodies, emotional bodies that we have, or the very conflicted mental bodies that we do. They are really in alignment with divine purpose, and they're in service to divine purpose. And their purpose is not ego. It may be developing individuation, but it's in service to the whole. We, on the other hand, are far more complex, and we are juggling more aspects of ourselves. Our emotional body, our astral body, our mental body, our causal body. And a lot of us are doing it with one hand tied behind our backs with amnesia down here. And that's one of the challenges of coming into the physical world. You know, when we're in the higher worlds, the fourth or fifth dimensions, we are aware, or far more aware, of the oneness, depending, of course, on our willingness to open our consciousness to that. But when we come down here, most of us fall asleep. We feel that we have this eternal soul. We don't know how to prove it, but we want to tap into that and have the fullest life that we possibly can in this life, but we have amnesia. And that's a real problem because we don't know who we are, where we've come from, or why we're down here, or where we're going. It's like, you know, taking a course curriculum in school. And not knowing what the questions are or the answers are or which way we're supposed to be heading. And so it's a very challenging course. I consider Earth a PhD class, to be honest, for brave, courageous, or crazy souls. But here we are all together doing the best we can. So this book, The Angelic Origins of the Soul, really is divided into 4 sections. The first one is a short section about what does everyone say about the soul? You know, what do the Buddhists say? What do the Hebrews say? What do the Christians say? What do the Shinto say? What do all the great traditions say about it? And the metaphors for it, which are, you know, that we're a drop from the cosmic ocean, that we're a flame from the great central sun, that we're a lotus blossom arising in consciousness. So this is a short version. And then we go into what is the evidence that the soul exists. And I love that section of the book. It's all about the landscapes of heaven, the map of heaven. And we really look at all these near-death experiences. Millions of people have had experience with near-death experiences where they've come back from the dead. And this goes back with our first recorded one to the time of Plato 2,500 years ago. And we have phenomenal ones from the 1800s and the 20th century and the 21st century because, of course, our medical technology is able to bring people back many times from the dead. And many of them actually remember going to the other side and having phenomenal experiences. So this is a powerful section of the book where we discover really the landscapes of heaven, the temples of light, the crystal cities, the sounds, the being that we meet on the other side, and we actually encounter something called the angelic twin. And the angelic twin is a huge concept that can totally change your life. So this book is very much about the discovery of this hidden secret within many of the great spiritual traditions. The third and the fourth section are the information that I've discovered as a clairvoyant doing over 6,000 readings for people around the world about the 9 orders of the angels, how we source from them, how each one of us sources from one of these orders. We don't change orders. And understanding your order is intrinsic to understanding what's going to make you happy. and how you can best express yourself in the world, whether it's creativity, or it's sacred geometry, or whether it's music, or whether it's art, or whether it's healing, or whether it's mathematics, or whether it's teaching. There are a million different ways that we can express ourselves, but understanding this about yourself is helpful. We also go through the 6 stages of soul evolution, from the beginner soul, the young soul, the intermediate, the advanced soul, the master soul, and finally the great bodhisattva souls that no longer really need to incarnate down here, but through their compassion for us, they do return from time to time. Finally, we talk about how the ego works to keep ourselves in the illusion, the denial of illusion of who we really are, and how we have all of these sort of barriers that we have put up between ourselves and self-realization, including something called the PVR triangle. The PVR triangle is the persecutor, victim, and rescuer, and it's a game that probably 85, maybe 90% of the world is playing at any given time. And understanding that triangle and that game and how to get out of it is fundamental for us to begin to really live a happier life. That's really what it comes down to. And to live a more self-realized life, a more masterful life, and a more joyous purpose in our destiny. So this book, also I have some amazing charts about the course curriculum, what we've come here to learn, and evaluation tests that you actually can take for yourself, or your friends can take, or your loved ones, to sort of see where we are, because there's many lessons that we must learn, from patience to kindness, listening to communication, empathy to logic, dependence to interdependence to independence. So it's quite an advanced course curriculum, but I talk about the core pillars of that and how they were taught within the mystery schools, and how through understanding them and mastering them we can come back into greater wholeness in our lives. So if you're interested in knowing more about it, this book will be out September of 2017. You can certainly find it on my website at TriciaMcCannonSpeaks.com, or you can find it on Inner Traditions website or on Amazon. Thank you so much for joining us.